Hello, my name is Lourdes Pacheco Ordonez. I've always been fascinated by the subconscious mind. Whether it's reflecting and analyzing my own emotions, dreams, or memories, interpretations of such always seem to vary based on the individual. Around the 1920s, many artists wanted to channel the unconscious as a means to unlock the power of the imagination. During this time, the Surrealist art movement began. Typical characteristics of Surrealism include dreamlike scenes, illogical juxtapositions, distorted figures, and biomorphic shapes. Two other distinct features of Surrealist paintings were hyperrealism, which includes crisp detail, three dimensionality, and saturated or monochromatic colors, along with automatism, which was the suppression of conscious control in the art making process. The two paintings I'll be analyzing today are Max Ernst's Two Children Are Threatened by a Nightingale, created in 1924, and Salvador Dali's The Persistence of Memory, created in 1931. Both of the paintings I viewed in an online gallery of the Museum of Modern Art. Max Ernst was born in Brill, Germany, 1891. After serving in World War I, he set up a small group of like minded individuals who had also served in the war, and there they experimented with various techniques, which would later start the Dada movement. The Dada movement was response to the war, and it consisted of satirical or illogical features. Later in 1922, Ernst moved to Paris, and there he would also help establish the Surrealism movement. Some of the techniques Ernst was most famous for include frottage and decolomania. Moving on to Ernst's painting, Two Children Are Threatened by a Nightingale, Ernst gave two possible inspirations for this artwork, the first being the death of his sister in 1897, and the second being a fevered hallucination he had as a child. I chose to analyze this piece because I found the combination of three-dimensional objects onto a two-dimensional painting fascinating. The lack of saturation in the colors gives this painting a dreamlike feel to it. Adding to this feeling are the different shades of blue which merge into one another as they reach towards the horizon. The people in this painting, however, seem to lack any real color. Instead, they are different shades of white, black, and gray. The nightingale is also black, but it is very small, almost imperceivable. If it weren't for the little girl on the bottom left corner who's looking up at it, one might not even notice it because of the other things that are happening. For example, the mystery behind the girl that has fallen in the center of the painting. Why is she on the floor? What happened to her? Or the man on the top of the house that seems to be taking off with the little girl. Why is he leaving? Where is he going? The lighting seems to be focused at the bottom center of the painting. Is it because they want to convey that the sun is setting? Or could it be symbolic of the light being taken away from the little girl, who is also found at the bottom center of the painting? As for the line work, the structure of the three-dimensional objects, such as the wooden fence and the house, seem rudimentary. There is also a wall that seems to point our attention towards the middle of the painting, where another structure or building is standing upright. The addition of the three-dimensional fence and the fact that it is open, not enclosed to the viewer, makes me think that Ernst was inviting us to witness this scene. He was inviting us to make sense of what was going on. In addition, there's a little knob on the frame, and which the man seems to be reaching out for. This adds to the mystery of why he wants to escape the world he is in. Is it because he's the cause of the misfortune that has befallen the girl on the floor? Could he be a reaper who's taking the girl's soul to the other world or the afterlife? As Momo points out, the painting features what would come to be identified as the defining preoccupations of Surrealism. Now let's take a look at Salvador Dali. Dali was born in Figueres, Spain, 1904. He was interested in art from a very young age, receiving drawing lessons around the age of 10. During his teen years, He was enrolled at the Madrid School of Fine Arts, where he experimented with impressionist and pointillist styles. In 1922, he enrolled at the Academia of San Fernando in Madrid to further his artistry. But in 1926, he was expelled from the academy for insulting a professor during his final examination, right before he graduated. But he didn't let this incident discourage him. He later made a trip to Paris where he visited Pablo Picasso and became inspired by the Cubism movement. He also started to study the psychoanalytic works of Sigmund Freud, along with the works of metaphysical painters like Giorgio de Chirico and surrealists like Joe Miro. The years passed and he dabbled in styles such as automatism and even tapped into a new state of mind that he developed called the paranoid critical method. This method consisted of tapping into his subconscious through systematic irrational thought and a self-induced paranoid state. This method also led to the creation of some of his most famous works. One of these works happens to be his piece titled The Persistence of Memory. At first glance, this painting seems very bizarre. Then, the more you look at it, and the more bizarre it gets. The colors depicted on this painting seem very earthy due to the predominance of the yellow, brown, and white tones. The objects in this drawing all seem to be closer to the left side, leaving a more negative space towards the right. The flesh tone of the form that lightly resembles a face adds to the illusion of the dreamlike reality we are seeing. As Momo describes, the monstrous fleshy creature draped across the painting's center is at once alien and familiar. They add that this object is an approximation of Dali's own facial profile. Moving on to the landscape. The landscape invokes a feeling of being in a desert. The vast openness and the mountainous looking object in the background, along with the leafless looking tree, all add to this feeling of a desert. Continuing onto the light seems to be concentrated at the top center of the painting, almost as if it's drifting away off into the distance. Contrary to the darkness that seems to be approaching upon us, the viewer. The line work is the main element that adds to this bizarre dreamlike feel, because it doesn't follow the elements or rules found in the real world. Instead of the clocks being round, they seem to be melting and bending into different shapes. One of them even has what appears to be a bug on top of it, indicating some type of rot, I guess. The face looking object also appears to be melted or stretched on the ground. It also looks attached to the ground, almost as if it's coming out from underneath it. MoMA's take on the persistence of memory states that here time must lose all meaning. Permanence goes with it. Ants represent decay. What fascinates me about both paintings is the invitation to the subconscious. In Max Ernst's Two Children Are Threatened by a Nightingale, we are led into a fever vision that appears to come to life as the two-dimensional man seems to be aware of our three-dimensional world. We are part of their fever dream and question the idea of this man trying to escape it to our world. In Salvador Dali's The Persistence of Memory, we seem to get a glimpse into a subconscious take on time. Time was constructed by humans to make sense of the world we live in. However, in this dream world, time is being deconstructed as it melts away and rots. Time doesn't seem to exist or matter in this world. Therefore, the things that abide by time, such as memories, will also cease to exist and be buried into the void.